Now on 4, the last in the series of The Decision follows women living in the shadow of breast cancer.
Each year, Wendy and Chris Watson hold a Christmas party for their relatives. In addition to the usual family ties, there is a more sinister bond between them.
Oh, it's a long time no see.
What a long time no see. Oh, nice to see you.
They live in the shadow of breast cancer.
Why did I hang up with this, Brett? Yeah, no problem. Christmas. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, that's fine, everyone. We need some more of these tomorrow, more white and more pre-packed reds. Okay.
Wendy and Chris live in Bakewell, Derbyshire, with their 13-year-old daughter Becky. Wendy's been haunted by the fear of breast cancer for most of her life, because so many of her family have been affected by it.
My mum died when I was 16. She had breast cancer and she died of it within about 9 months. And my grandma had breast cancer and then later died of ovarian cancer. From that time onwards, I was always very worried that I would get breast cancer. And I used to go to the GP quite regularly and say, would you give me a check? And he always used to say, well, you know, there's no need to worry, you're too young and it's not hereditary. But I was always convinced that it was hereditary. When I was about 36, we moved back into the Peak District and I met up with some of the other members of the family that I'd completely lost touch with. And we got chatting and found out there were 3 more that had all had breast cancer.
Wendy's suspicion that breast cancer could be inherited was correct. 5% of all cases, some 1,300 a year, are now known to be passed on through genes. Having watched so many of her relatives succumb in their 30s and 40s, and knowing that medicine had precious little to offer, Wendy's anxiety grew.
It got eventually so that I was continually worried about it. It would be there nagging night and day, because at 36, 37, the age of sort of 40 and breast cancer was very much upon me. And I couldn't think about Chris retiring or, you know, times when you might have paid the mortgage off or anything like that, because I didn't think I'd actually get that far. And then one night I just suddenly thought, well, I wondered if I had the mastectomies before I needed them. I wondered if that would stop me getting breast cancer.
Wendy found a surgeon who immediately referred her to the family history unit at St Mary's Hospital in Manchester. Clutching a makeshift family tree, she met Gareth Evans, a clinical geneticist. Gareth told her that her suspicions were well-founded. In those with a family history of the disease spread across several generations, it was likely that a gene was involved. He explained that in the future, a test might be able to pinpoint those affected. She'd be well advised to track down as many of her relatives as possible. An uncle told her she was related to a certain Jean Farnsworth, who was buried in Wirksworth Cemetery. The headstone gave scant information, but the grave was well tended. The church register provided a further clue, enabling Wendy to obtain a copy of the death certificate. The answer was as she had dreaded.
The death certificate said carcinoma of the right breast, and that was quite a thing, really, because Even though I suspected that she'd probably had breast cancer, it was still like a bit of a jolt. The next thing that I thought was, I wonder if she has any family, and would it perhaps be their right to know about us?
Jean Farnsworth did indeed have a daughter, Vanessa.
It was like a bolt out of the blue. I mean, obviously it was totally unexpected. And the first thing I did, I put the phone down and said to Graham, I've got this hilarious story to tell you. Because there were all these relatives that had emerged that I never knew about, never even heard of. And it just seemed so bizarre, and the way Wendy had actually traced me. And then the next day, sort of when I slept on it and woke up, I felt really low. And it was from how ridiculous, what an amusing story. I'll have to tell everybody, it's hilarious too. Oh my goodness. You know, where do we go from here? After I spoke to Wendy on the phone, she said that if I wanted to ring Gareth Evans, the consultant, I could actually phone him. He made an appointment for us both to go and see him. And I suppose that's when we really confronted it head on. My first recollection is that he had a huge folder on his desk, and that was my family history in it. And he opened it, and on page 1 there was the family tree, and there were black circles of people who'd actually died of breast cancer. And I just remember seeing sort of a lot of black circles. And I suppose that's when the implication of all this really sunk in, and we thought, well, our lives aren't now going to be the same.
Wendy was determined not to become another black circle. In 1993, only a few women had contemplated having their healthy breasts removed as a preventative measure.
Once I'd thought of how I could, in actual fact, prevent myself getting breast cancer, nobody could have shaken me. Because the overriding worry was dying of cancer. The overriding worry wasn't having mastectomies or having surgery. It was all the worry and where it might spread to. A lot of my friends have recently died of breast cancer, as well as a lot of family, and it's not a nice way to go.
When we considered the options, really, I didn't see that there was an alternative. As far as I could see, it was the best thing to do, and yes, I was fully supportive of the operation taking place. I love her for what she is, and not if a part's removed, well, that's fine with me. As long as she stays with me, then that's what I would want.
So I went into hospital, and the next day I had the operation and woke up and thought, oh, thank goodness that's that. I'm alive, it's done, and that's it now. You hopefully gamble over. And I felt fine, absolutely fine.
Wendy's surgery hasn't stopped her living life to the full. Tonight she's playing the lead in Aladdin, falsies and all.
I've got 3 different pairs at the moment, and they're all different sizes. I did think about having reconstruction done, and I don't know quite which size I'd choose if I got to choose for just one size.
9 green bottles hanging on the wall. 9 green bottles hanging on the wall. And 1 green bottle.
It's not stopped me doing anything at all. A show I was in last March was called Pyjama Game, and I had to get changed on the stage, so I just had to make sure they were very firmly sewed in, so there was none of them jumping out on the middle of the stage. But nobody could tell. I think at about the age of 39, you'd be quite lucky to have a perfect pair anyway, wouldn't you? So what I've got now is quite good enough.
Behind the scenes, for nearly 2 years, Gareth Evans has been tracking the progress of the disease in Wendy's family through the generations, analysing the blood and tissue of those affected, and searching for telltale markers of the faulty gene. He's now ready to unveil a revolutionary test, initially to be offered to only 10 families in the country. Thanks to Wendy's research, the Watsons could be one of them.
Well, nice to see you again, Wendy. The good news is it looks as though all your work has come to fruition, and that we have now been able to get enough proof in your family that the breast cancer that has occurred in the family is due to a particular gene, the BRCA1, the breast cancer 1 gene, which we also know is associated both with breast and ovarian cancer. So the pattern of problems in the family fits in with the pattern that this gene causes, but not only that, but it appears that all the affected individuals in the family carry the same copy of this gene.
Right.
We can't say with 100% certainty that people have or have not inherited this faulty gene, but the tests are getting towards that level with a high degree of certainty, enough really to base decisions about what to do about your risk.
So that means basically that Helen and Diane and Vanessa will all be able to have a test in the near future?
That's right. That would mean having some discussions about this, and if they still want to go ahead with testing, we would do a simple blood test. And they'll probably have a visit from one of our genetic co-workers who will explain things, and then they'll come up to the clinic and see me if they want to go any further.
Hello, Mrs. Smith.
Yes, is it Anya?
Yes,
Anya.
my name is Anya, and I'm working with Gareth. And this test that you've heard about now from Gareth is now available, and it's a predictive blood test that should be able to give you the knowledge of whether or not you will have inherited the gene that's running in your family. I've got a copy of your family tree with me. The gene itself has been located on chromosome number 17. I don't know how much you know about chromosomes, but they come in pairs. You have 23 pairs and they're numbered. And it's actually chromosome 17 that this gene has been located to. I'll show you a little bit about chromosomes. If I draw a picture, this could be your mother, okay, and your father. So your mother will have had 2 copies of her chromosome 17. She will have had 1 copy from her mother and 1 copy from her father.
Right.
Your father also has 2 copies of his chromosome 17, 1 copy from his mother and 1 from his father. So you'll have 1 copy of the chromosome 17 from your mother, 1 copy from your father. You'll have a 50-50 chance of getting the copy that has the gene, or a 50-50 chance of getting the copy that doesn't have the gene. All right. So if you've inherited the gene, you carry a very high chance of getting these cancers. It doesn't mean 100% having this gene that you will get a breast cancer, but it's probably about an 85% chance in your lifetime that you would develop a breast cancer if you've got this gene.
See you then. Bye. I've made that decision not to have a mastectomy until I know whether or not I'm carrying the gene. And even if I am carrying the gene, I would need probably a year or 2 to actually sort of think about what I was going to do, because after all, having a mastectomy is major surgery. And then there's the impact on the children when mummy hasn't got, you know, any breasts anymore. And there's also the impact on things like I go swimming and it's a public changing room. There aren't any individual cubicles. So I'd be changing in public, you know, with other women around. There's also a question of things like reconstruction. You know, I would want reconstruction, but there's been quite a lot of bad publicity recently about, for example, silicone poisoning or bags that tend to deflate. And I mean, that's another worrying issue. You know, are you safe with reconstruction?
The other issue which Anya's visit brought up was the issue of insurance. I mean, quite amazingly, a document came through the post for Vanessa 2 or 3 days after Anya's visit from a major insurance company about life assurance. Have you attended or been advised to attend for any consultation, treatment or tests at any hospital, clinic or surgery within the last 5 years? Quite honestly, I couldn't actually sign that, and I couldn't actually say no to that.
I mean, it's not such a great problem to us because we think we've got adequate insurance anyway, but obviously this could be a problem to some people who haven't actually got adequate insurance once they've actually been told by their GP or by a relative, as in my case. Once you've actually got that knowledge, you're into a whole minefield, really, of things that you know, you just don't think about initially. So for somebody who was insured, this would have, you know, very serious implications. What's your ball, Josh?
Hey! Run! Run! I didn't have to play it! Okay.
Well done, Josh. Right, I'm going to get a bit faster with the... Stand back a bit. Get faster with the bowling now, as I don't get him out. Yeah! He's out! I got him! Yay!
At this moment, we've made a decision not to involve the children. We've got a little girl who's 8 called Emmeline, and we've got a little boy called Joshua who's just turned 5. They don't know anything about this situation.
Are you always looking for a better magazine? One that's packed with...
Right, you ready? Steady, go.
My name is Diane. I'm Wendy's sister. I'm 35 years of age. I'm married to Alistair and I have 2 boys, Ben, who is 11, and Jason, who is 7. I was 12 when my mother died. I can vividly remember going back to school after the summer holidays and sort of feeling very much alone in the school. Obviously it wasn't different, but I felt very much alone at school, not really quite knowing how to cope with it. I didn't worry myself when I was younger, but obviously as I've grown older, it has occurred to me that obviously it would affect me. And I felt that Wendy's decision definitely was correct to actually go ahead and have a full mastectomy. I'm down on the waiting list with the plastic surgeon, because before the test became available I was down to have the operation, and I'm actually still on the waiting list.
That was the one where we had to really truly search our hearts as well, what it would mean to us, how would it affect us. Would Diane not having breasts affect our relationship or our marriage? And we came down and said no, definitely not. I mean, that's not an issue. What we really want is Diane to be around, living, having an informed view. You know, we can actually do with our lives as we want.
We've told our 2 boys everything because I wanted them to be informed and actually understand what is happening, and they know why I've been going to Manchester is to make sure that nothing does happen to me. My oldest is very similar to myself, and we do our best to get him to talk, as I can remember how I was when I was younger and wouldn't talk. And they both seem to be okay about it because we've actually kept them informed, and the reasons why we're actually doing it is to prevent anything happening.
The sisters are close and talk freely. Having had the double mastectomy, Wendy's not sure if there's any point in her going for the test. Last week she set off to Manchester to have it, but then had second thoughts.
When I got there, I just didn't know for certain whether it would be a good thing for me to have the test or not, because I thought, well, I've done everything I can do now. There's nothing else I can do with the knowledge, except for Becky. And whilst I've got to have the test at some point for her sake, she's only 13. Is it a good idea to have it now? I mean, would it be, you know, is there any advantage?
Concerns at the moment.
There's no advantage. I mean, there is an advantage if I get the negative result, of course there is, because I'll be able to say, well, there you are, Becky, you don't even need to think about it. But if I get the positive result, what do I, you know, how do I say, well, I'm sorry, Becky, but yeah, I've definitely got that gene, so it's something that you're going to have to think about. Is it fair at the moment? I don't know. Right. So you're going to have definitely going to have this blood test then?
Oh yes,
decided.
Yes, I've decided I'll have a blood test done. Yes, yeah.
And what will you do when you get the result? What will you do if you get a positive result?
I'll definitely have an operation, no doubt about that.
Helen is Wendy's second cousin. She's 21. Both her mother and grandmother have had breast cancer.
I don't think of breast cancer as a death sentence because my mum and my gran are still here. So before I thought it was just something that you could get over. And now I just understand that, you know, we've been very lucky so far. I didn't know about Wendy's side of the family, where a lot of her relatives, well, our relatives, have died from it.
Although only young, Helen has decided to see Dr. Gareth Evans with a view to having the genetic test, but she wants to explore her options first.
If I started a screening programme tomorrow next week, would that be of any use to me? And would it be of any use to you in your research?
At the present time, the best form of screening is mammography, which is an X-ray of the breasts. Unfortunately, one of the problems is that particularly early on in your 20s and 30s, the breast tissue is very dense anyway, it's very glandular, and that's one of the reasons why it's difficult to be sure that you're going to pick up all the cancers, because it's hidden by all the dense tissue around it. But we feel that, you know, at the moment it is worth doing, as long as it's done well enough and frequently enough. Okay, if you do go ahead and have the test, and it does show that you've inherited the gene, this will also change the situation with regard to your children. If you have the gene, then your children's risk will now be a 50-50 chance, instead of the 1 in 4, which it is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't stop me having children.
No, I mean, there are things that can be done.
It's like, yeah, it's another thing to organise.
Having discussed all these areas, are you now, 100% sure that you want to go ahead with this?
Yeah, I can't see any reasons for me not to.
Okay, well, what we'll do now is just take the blood sample from you.
The result, I think, will be positive. And if it's not, I'm not sure that I'll believe that it isn't positive. Because they say you've got a 50-50 chance of having the gene. But on looking back through my family tree, it's nowhere near. It's more like 98%. Even though I'm only 21 now, and the breast cancer in our family usually kicks in about 30, I think it'd be nice for me to know, to plan perhaps children and getting married, because, you know, if I do have to have the mastectomies, it's going to make a difference to my life on that sort of front, on perhaps finding a husband or something.
Helen and Wendy have been invited to the laboratories at St Mary's to discover how the genetic tests are done.
DNA is the genetic material, and it's the material that we do all our tests on.
So will my blood have been around there?
Yes, the whole process to extract the DNA from getting the whole blood into the laboratory takes about 24 hours. And when it comes off the machine, we precipitate it with alcohol, and this is what it looks like. A white, fluffy cotton ball of DNA.
And how much DNA is that?
Several million cells worth of DNA. It's enough to do hundreds of thousands of tests. It's like an enormous computer tape. So it is all tangled up, and what we need to do is to zero in on a particular part of the DNA that we're interested in, but where the breast cancer gene lies, and to do an analysis on that part of the chromosome.
What I can't quite understand is you've got thousands of chromosomes. Why they don't all get jumbled up, I can't actually see how you don't have to single it down to one cell.
Right. Well, they do get jumbled up, and if you can imagine that the DNA is all tangled up in a dreadful ball of knitting.
Right.
But what we have is a short segment of DNA that we've manufactured in the laboratory artificially. And what we do is to set this off to find the identical sequence to itself in the ball of wool, as it were.
Yes.
So this goes in and zeroes in on a copy of itself in all this great tangle.
Yeah. So in actual fact, if you've got 4,000 copies of that of chromosome 17 in there, you're going to get 4,000 segments like that showing up.
That's right. In this case, we're not testing for the actual gene itself. We're testing for markers that lie very close to the gene.
Right.
Okay, the way that these markers are useful to us is to track a disease through a family. So Grandma up here has got breast cancer, and we've assigned her chromosomes ABA and BAB. Right. So what we're really asking is, what chromosomes did she pass on to her daughters? And the daughter who has got breast cancer inherited type ABA from her mum, so that's an indication that that's the high-risk chromosome in this particular family.
Unfortunately, she's inherited the
high risk.
Should we up onto our below?
Yes, yes, this way. It's not going to be too muddy, is it?
No.
Notice you've got your wellies on.
Vanessa's blood test is drawing near, and she discusses her anxieties with Wendy.
At least we'll all be very closely monitored, and so hopefully they'd catch anything before it got too far advanced. And you say you have got options available. You could have elective surgery like you've had.
Yeah.
You see, I couldn't do that because, I mean, I'm such a wimp, basically. I pass out if I have an injection or something or feel queasy, so sort of going for major surgery. Yeah. You know, I think you're very brave.
No,
you know,
no, I couldn't have dealt with... I definitely couldn't have dealt with cancer. Definitely not. I just couldn't. I would have gone to pieces. If you're not going to have anything done about it, is there any point in having the blood test?
Well, there is. Obviously, I need to know for the children.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's...
And also I need to know for myself now, because now I've got this far, I've got to know.
Yeah.
And like, it's not going, as Anya said, it's not going to change anything. If I've got the gene, I've got it.
Yes.
But at least I'll know. And I will be able to choose to go for monitoring and regularly. And if I wanted, I could choose to have a mastectomy. But, you know, people say some odd things. You know, you're not having any more children. So you're not going to breastfeed anymore, so just go and have them off. Now, I'm sure even you wouldn't say that to me. Oh, you know, what's the problem, Vanessa? Go and have them off.
I don't think I would say it to anybody else, but it was the solution, you know. If you don't want to die, or if you don't want to worry about dying,
you've got to die.
Go and do it. Well,
I mean, we've all got to die of something, haven't we? Yeah.
At 40.
This is the thing, you know, I mean, I could, like, go and have a mastectomy, I could have a hysterectomy, and then I could get run over by a bus, you know. And I sort of think that way as well, that something's going to get me in the end. It's just I don't want to go just yet.
Yes.
But the way I see it, I can't keep on taking bits of my body out, because something's going to get you.
Well,
you know, eventually.
Yes, I guess you're right there.
So where do we go, in here?
No, but no, I think it's by that red, I think it's that red building, isn't it?
Do you want me to play a Hancock tape, just to remind you?
The blood donor.
You want me to play the
no,
blood
I'd
donor?
rather you didn't, no.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit again. So you definitely want to go ahead with this test. Have you really put yourself in the position that you're going to have this high-risk result? I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel that you'd be able to cope with that level of risk?
Well, I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, I've actually looked at it quite positively up to now, because I'm certainly not thinking about dying or anything like that, that this is something that's going to kill me, because what I'm thinking of is I'm in a much better position than, say, my mother was. Because at least I'll know, and I can sort of do think about it. Yes. But whether or not I would have surgery, I don't know, really.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, that you need really to be 100% certain before you opt for preventative surgery. And the reason for that is that, that women who tend to get pushed into having the operation tend to do worse than those who do it off their own bat. And I think it is important that the impetus to have surgery comes from you. This is a personal decision, and obviously you can share that with your husband, but the impetus to have the surgery must come from you. Okay, well,
Vanessa's been dreading the blood test because she has a phobia about needles.
Well, the best thing for you to do is to look away, all right?
Well, there's the vein.
Just keep taking some deep breaths and relaxing. You all right?
Not really.
You want to lie down?
Do you want to lie down?
Yeah,
I think
just lie
you'd
down,
be
you'll be
better
okay.
lying down.
We'll go.
Right.
It's okay. Just keep taking some deep breaths and relaxing. You'll be all right. Yeah.
Did you feel that?
Tiny.
It's just I've had to go into a very small vein. Sample's worse than having the result, isn't it?
I'll tell you later.
Cheerio.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.
See you in the new year.
Yeah. Bye-bye now. Happy Christmas.
Tomorrow, Vanessa will discover whether she's at high risk of developing breast cancer. She and Graham are understandably nervous.
I've not made a decision, but I'm looking at it objectively because, like I said, I don't want a vasectomy. I wouldn't, and even if I made a decision tomorrow, it wouldn't be a light-hearted decision. It was, oh, well, I better go and have them off because Wendy has and Diane's thinking about it. It would be the decision that appeared absolutely right. I mean, the way I see it is that they're not going to say to me, you have got cancer. It's not a life or death situation. So, I mean, to me, I just feel at the moment that it's just a real nuisance because it's taking up so much of my life. It's interfering so much. But you obviously don't see it in quite the same way.
No. I think if you were actually getting results tomorrow, which was saying whether you had or you hadn't got cancer, that would be very devastating, whatever it was. But your decisions as a result of that would be extremely limited. Whereas if you had cancer now, you wouldn't have a big decision to make. You'd have to do something to try and stop it. But this predictive testing, I think, is more stressful, and the decisions are more difficult about what you do. You've got so many variables to weigh up.
Okay. You know, Evans, if you don't take a seat
Hi.
there.
Hello?
Yes, come on in, take a seat. Come on in, take a seat. Right, well, I'm not going to leave you hanging around any longer. It's bad news, I'm afraid. The results are reasonably clear-cut as far as the testing for the BRCA1 gene is concerned, that you seem to have inherited the same copy of chromosome 17 that has caused the problems in the rest of the family. Now, we can't be 100% sure of this, as you were told it, that the evidence is at the moment that it's a greater than 95% chance that you do. All right?
Right.
Do you, I mean, I don't know if it helps just to, I mean, rather than just saying what the results are. As you can see from the family tree, everyone that's been affected in the family has carried the same yellow chromosome. And you can see from the markers down the yellow chromosome here, 541142. 541142, that's your mum. And you can see here that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 affected people have been typed with the affected chromosome. And you have inherited the same yellow 541142 chromosome. All right, Vanessa?
Yeah.
It's not all right, but, you know...
I suppose in your positive way, as you were talking last night, at least you've got a chance compared to your mum.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm supposed to be going to Spain next week.
Right.
I'm supposed to be going away next week, aren't I now?
You are.
You're not going to be a lot of good, am I?
You'll be fine.
You'd probably be a lot better if you go, actually.
I'm in charge of 40 students. Just I've got to get myself on an even keel for the next couple of weeks. I think I've almost come to a decision anyway.
Which is?
Well, I mean, I can't see that there is. I can't see that there are any options really, apart from one, to be absolutely certain. And I mean, I think I'll be going for a mastectomy. Don't you really?
I think you've decided that. I think you've decided that.
I mean, even though, like I was saying before we got the result, it wouldn't be a spur-of-the-moment decision in that it wasn't a light, trivial decision to make, you know. But I can't really say that there is any alternative at the moment. You know, there isn't a cure, and there might not be a cure for years. I don't believe that there's going to be a miracle cure next week. And I think time's running out. I don't know how, I mean, should I wait 2 years to see if there's a cure, or should I wait 5 years?
As long as we have the discussions with Anya and Gareth, then fine, we'll just live with it. I mean, it's not the end of the world. For goodness sake, it could be...
I don't think we could live with waiting. It would be living day to day, wouldn't it? Waiting to see if and when I got it. And the ironic thing is, I could live through it and not get it. But the thought of being worried for the next 30 years.
40, 50.
Or wondering.
Helen's father has gone with her to get her result.
See when you came out in November?
Yeah.
Right, I won't keep you in suspension any longer. I'm afraid it is bad news. That it looks from the genetic test as though you have inherited the BRCA1 gene from your mum.
Yeah.
And you can see here that the yellow chromosome 54114, 54114, 54114, 54114 has come down from your mother to you here. Now, as you know, for the next few years, the risk to you is really minimal, if there at all. The chance of getting breast cancer under 30 years of age, even if you carry BRCA1, is very small. Although as...
What is very small?
Well, the evidence is that possibly there'd be around a 1% chance of developing breast cancer under 30 if you carry BRCA1. But it would be between 25 and 30. I don't know of a single case under 27, I think is the youngest I've ever seen it in a BRCA1 family. So we'd be talking about starting screening at around 27 years of age anyway. When the risk really starts to pick up, then it's probably around 32, 33 that's when it starts to pick up. So you've got another nearly 10 years,
A few
really.
good years left.
So, I mean, the other thing is obviously you had a pretty big piece of information today. I don't want to go on.
No, well, I don't think it is.
You were reconciled to the fact that you'd got
Yeah,
it.
before it all started.
Yes, right.
Before we had sort of any contact with you, you know, just through my mum and my grandma. I thought it was, you know, just something that happened, and you've just sort of told me I was right, really.
You want for tea, babe?
Helen lives with her boyfriend Pete.
We have that steak pie.
He's certain that an operation wouldn't damage their relationship.
Not at all. Really, it won't change your personality, and yeah, that's the things that we're together for. We're not together just for the one thing, are we? Yeah.
Still got plenty more curves.
That's it, yeah. Plenty of them. Can we go to Sheldon?
Yeah, we can do.
It's nice up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you got that video? I've never had any problems with my breasts. They've always been alright, they've just been there. I mean, they've always sort of sat nice, but I won't let them put my life at risk. I'd rather be alive with no boobs than in a coffin with boobs. You want to go down to Lion?
You look healthy, I mean, you look great now, but, you know, it's pretty horrifying. It is a drastic decision, you know, to decide to probably have it done in the near future.
But it is. Well, I think I'd look a lot better up here than like 6 foot down.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but like, you know, like working on building sites and things like that, you've got all your best papers, the sports and the sun and other magazines and stuff. And It's all breast. It's breast, that's the woman. And it's a very attractive part of the body.
And, I mean, to me, I mean, this is a woman's point of view, but to me, I mean, if the
You're
fella
better to be
loves
alive.
you, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. And if the fella loves you, it don't care what you look like on the outside.
No.
They don't love you for that. They love you what's on the inside, to me. So.
Yeah. If I were with Pete, if I were like a single woman, and I'd got to go out into the wide world and find a man, then it perhaps would be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it is a big thing. It's physical attraction.
Tomorrow, Diane will discover her result.
For so long I've been expecting it to be a bad result, and I still feel the same, that if it is a bad result, then there's...
Just reinforce what we said.
That's right, it just confirms that the idea of what I was going ahead and having a full mastectomy is the option to take. There's no doubts about that, is there?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
What do you both think the result is going to be tomorrow?
3, 2, 1.
A bad result.
Hi.
Hello.
Come on in, come on in.
Hello, sorry we're a bit late.
That's all right, come on in, take a seat. Nice to see you again. Come on in. Right, okay, well I won't leave you hanging about, it's good news. You haven't got the chromosome that's affected everyone in the family. That's all right. That shook you, did it?
That's shocked, yeah.
That shook you. Well, let's just show you what I mean. This is the family tree. What we've shown is that you've inherited this chromosome from your dad, 641326, 641326, and the other chromosome, your mum's normal chromosome, we would predict the 241030. There you are, 241030. So we know that you've not inherited this chromosome from your mother, and this is the chromosome that contains the BRCA1 gene that is likely to be the cause of the problems in the family. We know that this isn't a 100% answer, because we don't know for absolute certain that it is BRCA1. It could possibly be another gene, but you know, your risk of breast cancer in your lifetime is only going to be a tiny bit up on the risk in the general population. Now, the reality is you've either inherited the gene or you haven't. We have to take into account the very small chance that this could actually be wrong. Okay?
Sure.
But it's good news.
It is.
It is. It means that risk is going to be pretty small now.
We hadn't considered this at all. We just felt there was going to be a dominant gene. We just thought there was going to be a dominant gene.
You're right, it's almost...
Yes, you're right.
But I can see why you might have thought that, because the family has been, I suppose, what you might call unlucky. Do you believe it? Do you believe this is true? I mean, this is as near to a scientific answer as we can get at the moment.
Sorry.
That's all right, no. By all means, it's nice to have tears under these circumstances.
Difficult to take in.
It's taken a bit to sink in, I think, really. It definitely was a big shock. It was not at all what I was expecting.
No.
And what I'd been living with for I don't know how long. Expecting. And probably the last couple of years since we've been coming up to Manchester, and it's been quite intense, really, hasn't it?
It has.
Working on these things, arranging to go and have an operation and coming to terms with all that. It was a big shock. Probably take a while to sink in.
Were your results all right?
Yes, they were fine. I've got anything to worry about.
I know you. Did Daddy have any injections?
No, Daddy's not got to have any injections, no.
Does he have to have any?
No. Yes, no. No, he's all right. All right. I think I still feel guilty about it because because out of the three in our family, I'm the only one who's had the good result, and the other two members had both had bad results before. Yeah, I mean, I still feel guilty about that.
We'd have always liked everybody to have had a good result, obviously.
Well, that's right.
But I think the way the situation's turned out, I mean, me being extremely selfish, I'm very pleased. So there's no problems there. I mean, yeah, thinking as we did in the waiting room about what the consequences would be of a bad result to the children, then that's one thing which we hadn't considered really. That a good result would actually say the
that
kids
means
are
that
okay.
the children are okay now, that's right, and they don't need to worry in the future.
Right, good afternoon, everybody.
Vanessa is a college lecturer in travel and tourism.
To go over a few things with you on our journey. Are we all listening at the back? We're going to look round the hotel for a couple of hours. Then we're going on to Puerto Banús to look again at upmarket tourism. A lot of the yachts there are owned by multi-millionaires. And if you want to try and meet a millionaire and try the nightlife in Puerto Banús, just let me know if you're not catching the coach back to Torremolinos.
Your lunches are upstairs. Oh, thank you. Did you go to the shop?
As far as losing a breast are concerned, I'm not obsessed with body image. I mean, let's face it, I'm not a supermodel, am I? But obviously I don't want it. I mean, I don't think any woman would say I want it. Having said that, I mean, there are people who have breast enlargement or, you know, various things done to their breasts, and they do that completely voluntarily. I mean, it's not as if I'm sort of incredibly well endowed either. I might end up with a sort of better pair even.
Vanessa has chosen the cosmetic operation. A little tissue will be left behind, so a tiny risk will remain, but she's reconciled to that. Today she wants to discuss reconstruction with her surgeon.
Now, if I were to preserve the skin envelope that is around your breast, what I could do would be to replace it immediately with an implant. And you've said to me you'd like them slightly larger than they are now, so that at least there'd be some spin-off of benefit from that.
Not that large.
Not that large.
I'll just go for a C then.
Just a little bit.
Just a C, yeah.
Just a bit more round.
Not ridiculous, but just a little bit. Now, one way is to put a silicone implant in straight away. I tend not to use them because there's so much media hype about silicone implants. Now, there may be a time in the future when I do come back to using them, but at the moment I prefer not to. The other option is to use implants filled with lipid. Now, in people who, for example, are on an intensive care unit, they have to be fed intravenously through their veins. Now, the material that they use to feed them is very, very similar to the material that is being used in these implants.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, if it leaks,
you're almost being fed.
It's no more harmful than having the intravenous feeding. Now, it won't feel like your normal breast. They'll look pretty good, but when you touch them, it'll be a little bit like having an oil-filled hot water bottle under the skin. Now, what are the complications of having implants? Well, there's a very slight risk that the blood supply coming up the skin underneath just might not be quite enough to keep the nipples alive and kicking. But I think it's worth the risk to try and preserve them, as long as you appreciate that if in the post-operative period it becomes clear that one of them isn't quite getting the blood supply that it needs, it might be necessary, I'm afraid, to take the nipple away.
So this will be something that will become obvious after the operation?
It'll become obvious straight away. It'll be obvious within 72 hours.
I think I'd have confidence in him operating, which is the main thing. I think you've really got to sort of like the person, have confidence in them. I think Graham might have had a few sort of doubts, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, but they've not been sort of second thoughts from my point of view. They've been, I think it's important, and I still think it's important that up until the day of the operation, I owe it to you that you review your decision, right? Still totally supportive of whatever you do, but I think you should review your decision.
Well, I think that's what keeps us going in a way, that we can, something I can change my mind.
Well, exactly.
Isn't it?
Hiya. Hello, darling. You all right? Yeah. A nice day?
Hiya.
Hi. Hi, love.
Hiya. Where's old Josh?
Hi, darling. How are you? All right?
Outwardly, Graham seems to be doing fine. But I think if I'd have been in a dreadful state and really depressed, and I mean, I have been through those phases, I haven't been continuously optimistic. He doesn't cope as well then. He'll cope while I'm coping. And I think that's true of the children. You know, it's very important for me to be seen to be coping. Because if I wasn't positive, the children would think, well, there really is something to worry about here. They know virtually everything now. I told Emmeline on her own, and she told Joshua. She told him word for word what I told her. And she did ask me, did I know anybody who died of it? And I said, well, yes, you know, Grandma Jean, my mum, died of it. But she also knows a lot of people that are relatives and friends of ours who've had breast cancer and haven't died. But the woman I felt in the changing room.
What did she got? Well, at least, Vanessa, you're not going to have the way you're having it done, you're not going to have the same problem as I had with the post office when I had the post office man come to audit. So I got everything out, so I got hands on me, getting everything out the safe for him and sorted it all out, and he trundled it all off into the other room. And a bit later on, I looked round and I thought, oh. I'd looked round, I'd been out doing the fruit and veg outside, so I'd looked round doing the fruit and veg. Then I got to find it, and then I saw this briefcase. I said, I'm going to have to have a look in this briefcase, see if it's in there, see if it's fell out in there. Oh, like this. And I said, in the end, I said, can I just have a look in your brief?
Was it there?
Oh my God. Well, I went to hospital on Wednesday. And I had a result to a blood test.
And?
Have a guess.
Oh, I just couldn't guess. Is it positive?
I've got it, yeah.
You've got it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what to say, really.
No. Well, what can you say? It's only what we expected.
Obviously, Becky knows.
Yeah.
Well, I know that when, by the time I'm old enough, that they're going to work something out by then. I think that they're going to have... I've got plenty of things that I can do when I'm old enough, so...
And I mean, you may not have it anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have, I mean, your mum's been so positive, and we're all just laughing about it, you know. I mean, it's no great shame, really, is it, when you think about it? It was really nice on Saturday because we had sort of little family get-together, plenty to eat, plenty to drink, and lots of laughs, really. I mean, it was great. Because I know when I first invited them over, I think Diane said, well, will you really want us so near to going in? And I said, well, what else will I be doing? I might as well have everybody round and have a sort of party, and that's how it turned out. You know, it was great. But it does worry me sometimes that I don't feel worried, really. I mean, I feel a bit apprehensive, obviously, as anybody does before an operation, but it's also a mixture of sort of excitement, really. And the fact that the day is nearly here, I'm really glad now after this long wait. You know, I'm just looking forward to it all being over now. This time next week, I'll be probably coming home.
This one up.
Yeah, that's right.
It's now the morning of Vanessa's operation.
I must show you this before I go off. Right. This is when I've got a sense of humour. I opened my magazine last night, so I have a really good read. Perfect breast, is it worth it? All about implants.
Did you learn anything new?
Yes, there's no proof that implants are safe. But I've looked at my one, vegetable oil implants, and it does say there's very little side effects. It's mainly
silicone. Although obviously I'm not doing it to get perfect breasts, I'm doing it for different reasons, you know. But
Well, you hope you'll get a better pair.
I do indeed, yes. I'm not going through all this for nothing.
At the moment, she does have two problems. Her breasts are slightly tubular, like that, and she has quite a large nipple areola complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the incision. If you see the breast lying flat, I'm going to make the incision from the upper outer quadrant like that, because 30% of the breast tissue will sit within there and in the axillary tail. And I'm going to take it up across the top of the areola like that. And I'm actually going to remove just a little bit of skin, like so, so that when we suture it up, it's going to give her a bit more breast fullness and a breast lift. So the danger is keeping the blood supply to the areola here, but hopefully when we've finished, she'll have a rounder shape. The areola will be like so, and the scar will be across the top.
All right, Vanessa. We're going now.
Take these off of you. See you later. Bye. I know that Mr. Baildon would really like everybody to see his handiwork, and I can understand that. But I'm afraid modesty does prevail at this point in time. I don't really want the operation shown itself, and I don't really want my breast revealed to all and sundry.
So much of this is attention to detail, it's being precise.
How much of the breast tissue are you hoping to remove?
We're going for the best compromise that I can achieve cosmetically and from a cancer risk point of view.
So would you estimate that about 95% will be removed?
Yes. Yes, certainly well over 90%. As near 95% as I can possibly get. When I finish this, I'm just going to go around and see if there's anything left, but I hope there won't be. Now what I'm doing is creating the pocket that the implant is going to sit in. Here it is. And it's got a slightly roughened surface, so that will reduce the chance of it getting a contraction around it. But it's just slightly oily. It's not jelly-like, it's more fluid than that. Can I have the Diva and some Vitadine? Well, this is the last stitch. We've done the second side, and it's actually gone very well. It's a good, symmetrical result. I hope she'll be pleased. The scars should be very neat, and all we need to do now is just clean it up, put some tapes on, and put the bandage on, and then the new bra that she's brought down to act as a support.
They're both quite soft, aren't they? I think that this one, yeah?
Yes. Rather soggy.
Yeah. Okay.
Good, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Hillary.
All the forms are there.
Vanessa's operation lasted just over 2 hours.
No. I'm really hot. I want to drink.
Can't really have a drink just yet.
No.
Yes, I want.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Not so bad, am I?
I better have a look, can I see?
Yeah, it's not been as painful as I thought it would be.
Well, looking at your nipples, they look as if they're going to be absolutely fine. They're pink and you can actually feel me touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's a bit of a bonus there. They're not numb.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think it's important that you feel it and you know that your breast is still there and it's changed inside. Have you touched them yet?
No, not really. I just had a peep at them.
Okay. Well, don't be frightened of it. Let me just take your hand.
Okay.
Just very gently. Just put it on and feel it so you can feel the shape and the position. You can do the same with the other side. Make sure the other one hasn't disappeared.
No, they're definitely there. And I can actually... There's a whole handful there now. I mean, I didn't think they looked this good, not straight away. In the night, I kept looking, I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh Lord, it's like a child, really, isn't it, with a new toy, but...
Well, it's gone very well, and certainly when it's all healed up, I don't think anybody except close to will ever notice that you've had breast surgery.
The shower test.
The shower test. Yeah.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Good. Good.
I still can't believe I've been and gone and done it. I mean, I feel quite pleased with myself, really, that I've done it. I did chicken out at the last minute.
Good. All the best. The worst bit's over now. Straight and level now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right, bye. See you.
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart. Mine. Ah.
Yeah.
Hello, darling.
Hey, Mum.
Ah, come here, give us a kiss, sweetie.
This one, yeah.
That's very polite. There. How are you?
Hi, thank you.
The other thing I'd say is how lucky we've been. I mean, you know, it sounds silly, but how lucky we've been in terms of the medical advances, which mean that now, you know, this has been possible, it's been identified. Otherwise, it could have been this year or next year or the year after. We'd be here in Christie's with a completely different attitude and a different platform.
Actually, because it's a cancer hospital, 90% of people here with cancer. Done a lot of thinking. I'm thinking that, you know, in a few years' time, I could have been here.
So you've no regrets?
Oh, no, we haven't got any regrets.
She's done the right thing. There's
I've
absolutely
never,
no
ever
doubt.
had a doubt in my mind from the moment I got the result. Never had any doubts at all.
Well, you've got to...
How are you? Hi, Oh, dear.
And how are you then?
Well, not so bad. I've had a bath. I've been done my hair.
You look
especially
wonderful.
for
You do, you look wonderful.
It took it out of me having a bath. It really
Yes,
did. You know.
exhausting. But I think everybody's really impressed with her. You've just taken it so well. You just got a strength. You know, you found a strength.
Somewhere. God knows where.
I know. I know. Well, I think you just do, and you have, and it's made it. Oh, but you have it. You've been wonderful.
First time I've felt like it.
Well, I'm so proud of you. You're going to make me cry as well.
Details of a fact sheet on breast cancer follows this programme. If you would like to know more about the breast cancer genes, there is a free Channel 4 booklet which explains who might be affected and the implications of carrying the gene. For a copy, please send a large stamped addressed envelope with a first-class stamp to The Decision, Breast Cancer Genes, P.O. Box 4000, London W5 2GH.